Hi there, Kevin from Lighthouse Systems here. Just wanted to talk to you briefly about the concept of basic cyber hygiene. It's something that every company needs to look into, and it seems to take on new meaning in this world of COVID. So what exactly is basic cyber hygiene? Basic cyber hygiene is a concept that was developed by cybersecurity professionals years ago. And it was to help businesses understand what the fundamental best practices are to help keep your business safe. Basically, what you need to know is, what are you trying to protect? How are you protecting it? And who are you protecting it from? Each of the cybersecurity frameworks has a slightly different take on it, but basic concepts are the same. So I've broken it down into 12 steps that you should know. The first is you need to identify and prioritize all your key company assets. So you don't know how to protect things if you don't know what you have. So the first thing is make sure that you have an accurate inventory and make sure that you prioritize what are your key assets versus what would maybe be untrusted or public assets. Secondly, you would want to identify and prioritize the threats. So you do a risk assessment, make sure that you understand all the threats associated with all of your business risk, whether that's online threats or just human threats of people deleting files, all the different things, and be as verbose as possible so you capture everything. Then you need to make sure that you have a strong network security posture and you're monitoring. And again, don't treat all of your network segments the same. Make sure that you know where, what they call your crown jewels, the most important bits of information that you need to protect. And that's where you want to fortify. That's where you want to make sure that you focus your monitoring. Next, you want to go and make sure that you use the least access privilege everywhere. So you want to limit your exposure wherever possible. And that includes limiting, human error and those types of things. Don't give people access to stuff that they don't need access to. And make sure that you keep a real close eye on those elevated user accounts. Next, you want to make sure that you have a standardized security configuration that is always in place. So everything that you deploy is going to have, that you've got a baseline of security for every laptop, desktop, every device is going to be connected to your network. So you make sure that you maintain a baseline level of security, and then you can improve from there. And it can express enough how important patching is. The software vulnerabilities have always been a hacker's heyday. So they want to get in through, whether it's a vulnerability in your printer software, more likely your end device, your Mac OS or your Windows operating systems. They look for the holes, and they're well published on the internet on the vulnerabilities as they get exposed. Next, you want to make sure that you use a modern endpoint and malware security. The old antivirus just doesn't cut it anymore. You want to look for a solution that has what's called EDR, endpoint detection and response, and incorporates the AI and machine learning and all the rest of that in there, so they can detect the modern attacks, because the hackers now are getting very clever at getting around sort of common detection methods. So you have to go deeper into that in the deep learning. So whenever possible, number 8 here is about using two-factor authentication. So it isn't a foolproof or a safe, perfectly safe way to control access, but it's far greater than just using a password. And I put in there, use a password vault, because in today's world, you need to have better protection than just using expecting people to use best practices on passwords and not reusing passwords. Get a password vault. It'll help you maintain that integrity with all of your passwords across your enterprise. Number 9 is about having a good data backup strategy, and make sure you test it often. So you want to make sure that when something goes wrong, if somebody deletes something, if a hacker gets in and encrypts your files, that that you have a good backup, and that you have a way back to a normal state. So make sure that's always in good order, and that you have a good strategy around that. And ultimately, number 10, you have to plan for the inevitable. The way things are going nowadays, hackers get in. It happens. People make mistakes. There's all kinds of things that can go on that can go wrong. So make sure you have a solid incident response plan, and make sure that you have a business continuity plan. These are things that you can't make up on the fly while the incident's happening. Have it prepared, have it tested well in advance. Number 11 is make sure you conduct security awareness training. They talk nowadays about having the human firewall, and that's about making sure that all of your end users, they're your weakest link in any security program. So make sure they understand what they need to do and how they need to behave, how to detect the common phishing attacks and the common modern attacks, and who to talk to. So make sure that you're doing a good job of making
building a cyber aware culture within your organization. And lastly, it's one thing that gets overlooked a lot, but make sure you hold your partners to your standards. So you have an expectation of security and integrity to protect your business. A lot of people are moving to SaaS applications, which is great, but they don't verify and make sure that the SaaS provider that you are using has all of the pieces in place that you would do. So make sure that you do a third-party risk assessment on them for every vendor, especially the ones that are doing data processing or doing anything that involves your data, because ultimately you're responsible.
So I hope you found this information informative. And as always, if you wanted more information, you can go to our website at lhsystems.ca, or you can email us at info@lhsystems.ca.